Idea of Misery by Stephen King. Because that book, okay, I know people gonna get mad, upset, I know, but that book was boring. I feel like writer's block is where your brain is like, okay, can I? If the story's not going anywhere in the next like few chapters, then I'm like, okay, I can't, because like it's not going anywhere. If you have writer's block and you tend to keep working, trying to really force yourself to work to write, then
Welcome back to the Wax Quill Podcast. Woohoo!
Welcome back to the Wax Quill Podcast. I'm Esther Joel, and today I have a very incredible guest. This is Jalen Tellis. Jalen has been not just a published author with his new books recently. He's 20 years old, and he's already been a film director and a film writer for a few years. So this guy knows a lot about storytelling, and he specializes in very realistic, suspenseful, very grounding, complex storytelling. So, Jalen, let's begin. We talked a little bit before the podcast. Tell us about your beginnings, how you got into storytelling in the first place.
man, so it all started like years, like way back when I was like 6, 7, around that time. I remember vividly on this day where, I found these homemade books that my brother wrote himself as like he was like 15 or 14 around that time. And I read it, I was like, man, these books are cool. Like I was always into like reading books at the time. So right now I still do, but like just saying at the time I was very like into it. So I'm like, man, this is very cool. And just seeing my brother doing that, like writing his own stories, and like he had like these stack like books that he written, like I like the hard like the front covers were like hard cardboard.
Mm-hmm.
And like he taped the papers inside of it to make it like an actual hardcover book. So I was like, oh, this is very cool. Then I was reading all of it, just every single one. Like, and like, man, that gave me like a spark. Like, man, I want to do this too. So that's when I started to write my own little like homemade books at that time, and I loved it. I enjoyed it, and that's what made me like, man, I want to become a writer when I grow up. And I feel like that was at the time it was so rare because when I was a kid, like people my age at the time was like, I'm gonna become a firefighter, I want to become an officer, a nurse. No one said, hey, I want to become a writer. I was the only one that said that, and that was like a cool thing. It made me like feel like I was like unique and different from the others, like because writing wasn't like a big thing that a kid was like, man, I want to be writing stories, but everything like that. Because my all-time favorite series I always read when I was a kid was Goosebumps. Everything. Goosebumps was my thing, and my favorite story was that one with the puppet, that the puppet one. I
I
forgot his
don't think I
name.
read that one.
I forgot his name. I think people should know what I'm talking about with that with the puppy. I forgot his name, but yeah, that one. Everything. So that's all started from years ago to now, and yeah.
Love it. So that's how you got inspired. What was your first book that you wrote? Or how did you, let me see, how am I going to ask this? Writing a book is hard. How did you get to the actual writing part? And what was that like for you?
Man, that's a good question. So my actual, so like, are we talking about like my official like actual real book I've written and published, or like actual like book?
Yeah, the first one that you managed to finish.
Oh, okay, cool. So so I remember. Okay, so I remember vividly. I made this series when I was like 10 years old or 9. It was this. It was called The Twins. I remember this so much because it was like the only book that I finished ever. It was called The Twins. Their names were Jake and Jack, right? And these twins were ghost. They were ghost hunters. They're ghost hunters. They were ghost hunters, twin brothers, going around capturing ghosts, whatever. And I made like 2 series books of those, like a book, 2 parts of it. And I remember in the last book, um, one of the twins, I forgot it was either Jake or Jack, but one of them got hurt while they were fighting a strong ghost, whatever. And they were in a coma, they were like passed out, and the other brother had to find a cure to wake up his brother. So that's when the brother went to New York because he think that someone out there was gonna have the cure to help him wake up his brother. And that was like a cliffhanger. Because when it said that, it says to be continued. But I never finished it. I never finished the third one.
We
So
don't know.
and I forgot what happens after that. I forgot. It was years ago. So I don't know what happens after that whole thing. But that was like my actual first book that I finished.
Mhm.
Because like it was so like cool. Because I was inspired by the actual Ghostbusters whole movie thing. So it was, yeah.
Wonderful. And how long did it take you to write that? Was it discouraging? Writing is hard, so tell me
I
about
was
the experience
literally
itself.
I was literally just having fun. Like I was just writing because as like as like around that age, it was like I was like 9 or 10. I had so much time in my hands, so I wasn't really dealing with much. When you're a kid, you don't deal with certain stuff. You just have great time. So I was just in my room, just writing, just writing at my pencil, paper, just doing that, right? Because it was more like it was like again, I was inspired by Ghostbusters. So and I drew the pictures like it was like a comic kind of. It was like wording and pictures on the middle.
Hmm.
So it was like a visual and writing phase, whatever. And I forgot how long it took me to write that. I feel like it took me just one day because I had so much time in my hands. So I feel like it took me like not that long to write everything. So, but yeah.
Do you ever feel limited by um, word count? Well, one of the recent books that you published, if correct me if I'm wrong, is a novella, right?
Yeah.
So do you ever feel like you're like you need to push yourself to make it a full length novel, or do you just write however long it needs to be?
Good question. So me personally, is I write my stories on how long it needs to be. If I know that the story doesn't, because I personally do not like fillers. I hate fillers in stories. Like I hate fillers. Like it's so.
Quick pause here. I'm hosting Book Bootcamp. If you're a struggling writer, you're trying to get that first draft of your first book done and you just haven't managed it, sign up. waxquillpodcast.com.
If the story's not going anywhere in the next like few chapters, then I'm like, okay, I can't because like it's not going anywhere. Like I literally DNF'd two books so far in my reading journey. I DNF Misery. I DNF Misery by Stephen King because that book. Okay, I know people gonna get mad, upset. I know, but that book was boring. I'm sorry, but it was boring, and but it was like because it wasn't going anywhere. So I personally don't like fillers. So if I know that if a certain scene is not it doesn't need to be too long or too short, then it's going to be written in a novella. Like, and right now I'm currently writing my first debut novel, and I know with a novel I need to balance that out and word count. So it's more like like I know, okay, if I feel like because I do plan out the scenes in my head. Like I don't outline my books. I know how the plot goes in my head. Like it replays in myself so many times. So I know how things start from the beginning and the end. So if I know that a certain scene needs to be cut or needs to be this long, then it's gonna be that long. And I try to hit a certain word count in my certain chapters I write. Like okay, I want to hit like 1,000 words on this chapter or like 400 words on the chapter, or which just depending on the story. And with my novellas, it was more like it's like a fast pace but slow little parts of like a telling story, everything. So it doesn't really affect me much. I don't really overthink about, okay, I need to figure out if this needs to be a novel or novella. Like it just happens naturally. It happens naturally. Because fun fact, when I was writing my recent novella, my thriller, um, it was originally going to be a novel. It was going to be a novel. But when I was writing it and when I was thinking about it, I'm like because it was like this doesn't need to be a novel. Like it doesn't need to be a novel. It's because I feel like it was going to be very boring if I wrote a novel because certain stuff doesn't really make any sense to why like it doesn't make the story flow forward.
Mm.
It's pretty like if this certain scene or certain aspects of the story doesn't really impact it that much, then there's no point. So that's when like last minute I changed it to okay, let's let this book to be a novella, and it worked well.
So I've okay, I'm gonna tell you a secret. I've started a book boot camp to help people get their first drafts written. You know, I haven't published a book, but I'm really good at getting first drafts done. And I think that's the hardest part for a lot of people. So that's what
Yes,
this is for, to help get a first draft written. What I'm seeing so far is the people that are my guinea pigs are having a hard time they know what character they want, but they're having a hard time with the plot. So
Mm,
how do you sew your stories together and balance characters, plot, setting?
okay. That's a good question. Good question. What I specifically do is that I think of a what if, and I think of like, man, how this could impact the story, how this could impact the character and what the character's journey and their arc impacts the whole narrative. It's more like, again, like more I tell a more realistic approach in my storytelling, and I really think about the characters way more because they make the plot. They make the plot, and is all relies on them. If it's first person, third person, it doesn't matter because the main character, that the MC is going to make or break the story, you know, because no one wants to read the character that if the character is like not good, it's like, okay, this character is kind of annoying or this character is kind of boring, it's like the MC make or break the whole plot, so that's why first I say, in my opinion, I say to really, for people who are struggling to figure out the plot, they know the characters, but they figure out the plot of it. I say to always think of a what if. And once you have the what if, like for my example, now because that what if can open may more questions about the story. Now you can ask yourself, like, who are the characters? Who are they? What their backstory? Why are they going to here, or what they're doing in this scene, and what happens after this? Like, what are the stakes? Is this a thriller? Is this a mystery? Is this a fantasy? Is this just a fiction, drama, romance? And what are the aspects what these characters go through in the story from beginning to end. So
Mm-hmm.
that so that's how I do it.
Gotcha. Very nice. How do you ever struggle to like commit when you come up with an answer to one of those questions and you know that it's going to change the rest of the book? Do you ever struggle to commit to that, or does that also come naturally to you?
It is made so it's both commercially, but it's very hard to commit because I personally don't like, man, I gotta change this, gotta change that. Geez, because it's because when you have the idea in mind, you tend to like, man, this idea is very good, it's great, and I just want to write it so bad, everything. But when the story isn't going how you think how you want it, it's like, okay, now I gotta sit back and change certain stuff, and then that's okay. Like, also though, like I said, like my thriller was supposed to be a whole novel, and I changed the whole story to like a novella and the characters. And it's okay because you never know, like the idea you have, the new one could be way better than your old idea, than your old original one. Because the great thing about writers, of us writers, we have so much ideas in our head that comes to us so randomly, but it's like you have a better way of telling the story, a different way to approach it. Because how I see it is that a story can be told in different approaches, can be told in different ways, in different angles of it. If it could be told, like for instance, like if a fantasy can't be told by a main character's perspective, and they go through a journey of, I guess, grief, or you could change it where, okay, I want this character to go through um a journey of finding themselves, not grief, but they find themselves in the story. Like it's the same concept, but it's told in different type of meaning and theme away with the character. So committing to change a story, it can be annoying and hard, but I know that, okay, if this could impact the story more better, then all means I have my faith in it. And
Mm-hmm.
if that don't work, then keep going, keep trying, and or if it just doesn't work at all, then it's okay to trash it because obviously it doesn't work. Try new things.
Gotcha. Tell me about your editing process. with regards to those new ideas that come that might make the story better, and you're not sure. What does it look like when you're sitting down and editing a story that you've written from start to finish?
So my process of editing is going through like a change right now currently because like I'm still trying to honestly still trying to like find my way to the like the whole process of editing, like finding an editor, like figure out what certain things I should do before I send out to the pressure editor, everything. But guess with me is like I try. I know people say the first draft is always gonna be your worst, your worst draft ever, and it's okay to change it, whatever. To me, I feel like I should like at least try my absolute best to write a great first draft. Even if I'm gonna change it either way, it doesn't matter. Like I
Mhm.
tend to feel like I just want to write what I can to better the story in the first draft, and later in the process, if I feel like, oh man, wait, I kind of want to add this or add that, then I go back with my first draft and start revising or line editing myself, and I just add a few things. With me, like I either go through it and I just remove certain stuff, minor things. I just add a lot, and that's why it's always good to like once you finish your first draft, just leave it alone for like a few months or a few weeks to like let your brain refresh. And I would say to like read your whole story, read your whole thing as like a reader. Don't read it in like a writer's perspective. Read it in like a reader. Read it as if you are a reader. You went to Barnes Noble or you buy it on Amazon, like, wait, this book is kind of cool. And you have that book in your hand. So you need to read it as if you are yourself a reader reading a author's work. And that's how you critique it. Like you like critique your work as if you're like doing it in someone else's work, and be hard. You can be harsh, whatever, because like again, it's your work, and you are your own worst critic. So it would help you better. Like, okay, this story, this certain scene is kind of trash, but like, wait, that's good. I can just add that. Like, okay, add a few more to take out some stuff and everything. That's what I do. Is that I read my things like as a reader, and I'm like, okay, this thing happens, and I think this should have been thought out more, or I feel like the ending could have been more different. That's how you add notes to it, and you're like, okay, go back at it and go back, write, add on that little thing, or take out certain thing, everything. Or if you want to add a character that could benefit the main character, you can do that too.
Mhm. I love that. I like to leave my first drafts alone too.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought of reading them all the way through as a reader. That makes a lot of sense because often your book is better than you thought it was, you know?
Yes.
Hey, if you like, subscribe and comment below with the word toast, then the next time you're eating toast, a brilliant story idea will enter your mind. You're welcome.
Yeah, and like it's very like beneficial too. It's very like great for like to you because you would rather yourself be harsh on yourself rather than someone else. You know, like is you would rather have yourself be like harsh to you. Like, man, this book is trash, but that's okay because I can change whatever I want. I can add a lot more stuff to make it better, you know? So that's why it's always good to read the whole thing. I mean, don't read half of it. Read the whole thing as if again you are a reader that's like looking for a new book to read. And this author is yourself, but you think that this is a whole other author you found on whatever. And you read it through and you give yourself a review. You give yourself a review of your own work. And what I would do is that I will like write questions to like what do you think of this book, or like what were your cons or your pros of this story,
Mhm.
and like what would you rate it? And you rate yourself, you rate your story as if you rating someone else's, you know.
Mhm.
And I think that's what will help certain writers do that to help better story as well.
And do you do that as you're reading or after you finish reading the book, you grade it?
After, after I finish.
Okay.
I was like, man, I did like this one. I did like this approach, but I feel like my cons were like this story kind of felt flat. Or like the character kind of felt, I wish this scene in the turn chapter could have been longer. you know? So exactly like you're giving yourself these suggestions and it's
Mhm.
great. And plus, like it really makes it where like you are your own a better reader. And
Yep.
you can like you're giving yourself these great suggestions. And it's like, man, is it perfect, you know?
Mm. I love that idea. I'm gonna do that.
You
I have
should
a lot
it,
of first drafts I haven't even looked at for years, so that's how I'm gonna start editing, I think.
I'm telling you, like you never know. When you go back and read it and you change it, is you like, man, it's gonna be great. It's gonna be awesome.
Love it. Okay, there was something that we are opposites on. You like to make you well, I guess not. I'll just explain. You said that you work your best, you work hard to make your first draft as good as it can be. I am doing this book boot camp, right? And
Mhm.
I keep telling um, my students to to make to just spit it out. If it needs to be horrible, fine, just spit it out. But I guess I hold myself to a different standard. If there's a scene I'm struggling with, but I just have to get to the next one, and I know that later I'll fix it, then I'll just spit it out. But I also like to make it as good as possible. So, have you always had that opinion? Have you always tried to make your first drafts really good, or is that something that you learn as you go along?
It's mainly it's barely is strongly is like mainly like I want to make my first draft as good as possible
Mm,
because I don't like saying to myself, "Oh no, I fix later. I fix later." Then like to me now, it's me personally, is like then what's the point writing it?
mm-hmm,
Even though I know that this is just a first draft, I know it's gonna be changed either way in after the future or whatever. But no, I like it would save me a lot more time and less stressful time to like rewrite certain stuff rather than like it's just for me. And plus, I don't want to go into something knowing that just to write anything out. Like I want to think before because I have this thing where like, I think before I do. So like I think before I write. I really think to like, okay, this scene needs to be like this or that. Doesn't matter if it's first draft or not. I just like making things as a way it should be like as if I'm writing it a final draft, whatever. And knowing that I could change a lot more stuff or I could add more things to it that could make the story that could make the story better. And I could cut out certain stuff too after the fact. And and I do agree on the certain things where like, yeah, it's just a fair draft, so don't beat yourself up too hard on it because again, it's the first draft. That's I do agree with that. But to a certain extent, I feel like you should at least try to make your first draft like as clean, organized, and great pacing as possible. To really to really be thought out and don't just write certain nonsense because it will leave you it will leave you less time and also your editor less time to do if you are the type of person to just send out your thing to your editor once you're done,
mm-hmm.
and that's when like they come back with the okay, hey, I like the story but this like that. So I'm more of a like in that approach where I want to make my first draft as good as possible, but knowing that it could be way more better in the future.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. Um, what do you do when you get the infamous writer's block?
It was funny because though this answer I love a lot because I feel like people tend to like overthink this I kind of a little bit because I was on Threads and one of my other friends she asked a question like, hey, how do I get through a lot of everything? And again, some writers are different. They have their own different approach how to they deal with it, everything. So and then that's good. But with me, what I do is that when I write and I have like, wait, what do I write next? Hold on. And if I'm there for like 5 minutes of just sitting there not doing anything, okay, I save my work, close on my computer, I go ahead and do something else. I leave my work alone. Take a break to let my brain because I feel like writer's block is where your brain is like, okay, can I have a break real quick? Because I can't think of one now. It's like that. You're giving yourself a break, your mind a break. Because for me, with writers, us writers, we tend to think that if I don't write anything right now, then it's gonna be I'm not a writer. No, that's not the case. Like give yourself breaks. Give your brain time to relax and recharge itself. And when you never know, once you reading or watching TV or doing something, or just think, just sit there and think and just chill out, new ideas will come up in your mind. New ideas will come up randomly. Like, wait, and if you're reading, which I do really recommend, if you're write block, you read to like get your mind on everything or everything, and you will feel inspired to go back and reading. Because if you have a writer's block, and this from experience, because I did this when I first wrote my first book, and this was like when I didn't know anything about writing a book, whatever, anything. If you have writer's block and you tend to keep working, trying to really force yourself to work to write, then the whole process is going to feel like a burden. It's going to feel like tiring, and you want that because you're going to hate writing now since you are just trying to force yourself to write. And I say don't do that because you want this to be as good. Because when you just do that, then you're just going to write whatever. Like, okay, just whatever. It's going to need it. Anyone, something. No, like take breaks. To take breaks. It's okay to take breaks, guys. It's okay to take breaks. Let your mind refresh. Let your whole thinking process refresh and come back later. Like it's okay to take a day or a few hours or even a week. It's okay to take a week break, because we writers work hard. We all work hard, and we're in like a battle between ourselves. It's like we have these like imposter syndrome. I think it was called. Is it called?
Mhm.
And we tend to, have self doubts. We tend to like feel like, okay, if I don't do this, then I'm not a writer. If I don't write this, how many long, then I'm a writer. Like it's okay, like take a step back, relax, and to I guess you can say enjoy the moment, and to really take your I say like as of you're your own boss, you're working for yourself, writing a thing. It's like, your boss, your employer, to like, hey, take a break, because it's legal to not take breaks in a job, right? So treat yourself as if you're your own boss, to take yourself a break, because we all need a break, because we all work hard, and that's my way of dealing with writer's block.
Stay tuned for part 2 of this interview. It's even better than part 1.